some problems with warm weather, melting snow, and in addition to that, rain. Now with this system, it's on the way out. With our next system coming up, first...
This is your local forecast. Weather information you can plan on, only on the Weather Channel.
Rain and fog make driving treacherous, even deadly in parts of the east. Rivers are on the rise across the mid-Mississippi Valley, and some parts of the country haven't given up on winter just yet. Those stories plus in-depth forecast and analysis in this edition of WeatherScope.
Well, today's been an unsettled weather day across much of the nation. We've seen rain in the east, lots of record warmth too. We'll talk about that. There's an increased flood threat for parts of the central U.S. and plenty of snow in the west. I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Griffin.
And I'm Will Ann, and once again, fog accompanied the wet weather in the east and wreaked havoc again on driving conditions across much of the east. We're going to take you off to New York City, where once again fog and slippery roads are being blamed for a deadly accident involving a school minibus. The bus slid, flipped over the center divider, and landed on top of another car, killing one person and seriously injuring another. Visibility was down to a quarter of a mile this morning in New York City. In the metro area, it also had been drizzling at the time of the accident. Well, let's show you what's going on right now. There's been a lot of rainfall throughout much of New England today, and now redeveloping throughout the deep south as well is another batch of rainfall for Georgia, Alabama, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Big snowstorm this morning across parts of northern parts of lower Michigan is now beginning to end, but the fierce winds continue now, really from Ohio into Pennsylvania, New York State. Winds have been gusting better than 60 miles per hour around Rochester and also around Buffalo, New York. Could be looking at more of that to come as well. But first of all, we're going to take you down to the deep south where the rainfall continues off and on, more on than off now for Birmingham, Montgomery to around Atlanta, Georgia. And here we go. We'll be watching for this rain beginning to spread down towards the northeast. It will be a rainy night in Georgia, central and northern sections, and back into central Alabama too. And once again, we're watching for this thing trying to roll into motion right here, and as it does, we'll see it beginning to advance on towards the northeast. As you can clearly see it now, beginning to overspread all of northern Georgia. Let's show you what's going on as we look at, first of all, the deep south, and we're going to show you why we're looking at the rainfall. Stalled out front here. This can be in about the same position for the next couple of days. Good chance of more scattered showers and thunderstorms. A very warm day today over much of the deep south. Orlando, Disney World country, was up to 90 degrees this afternoon, so a very warm day there. Also looking at some warmth as far north as New York City, 71 degrees. That was good enough for a brand new record high. And take a look at some of the records sprinkled in and around much of the region. Where we see one of these red dots here, it represents a record high set today from the Carolinas on northward into New York State, especially around New York City. And again, we were looking at some more warmth here with some strong gusty gusty southwesterly winds. And once again, you can pick up the rainfall right now as it begins to cruise on towards the northeast across the rest of central into northeastern New England. Well, that's a look at what's happening right now in the east after a day of some record warmth and some rain. We'll check on the west for where there's going to be a developing storm system right now. And with the details, here's Rick.
Plenty of snow in the west, Will. We'll check on that in a minute. Meanwhile, across the central U.S., it still looks a little bit like winter. But in some places, it's beginning to look a little bit more like March. Here's an example. Windy weather blew residents of Toledo, Ohio to and fro today. Winds were sustained up to 35 miles an hour with gusts to 60. Not a good day to push around light boxes outside. A front moved through the city early this morning, bringing strong west winds and a temperature drop. A bad situation's getting worse for flooded areas of the Midwest. Residents here in Rock Island County, Illinois are working to try to keep the Rock River at bay after yesterday's rain. Many residents have already evacuated homes and businesses, and more rain's coming up this weekend. Snow covers the ground in New Haka, Nebraska. Possibly the last sign of winter around, because as the snow arrived yesterday, part of a narrow swath of wintry weather that moved through the Midwest. But our advice is enjoy the snow while you can, because rain will be heading into the area, eastern Nebraska, as we head into the weekend, specifically during the day tomorrow and tomorrow night. Now, it won't be all rain in Nebraska. Central and western Nebraska will see probably snow, and all of you in Nebraska will see snow before the precipitation comes to an end during the first part of the upcoming weekend. We think most of the precipitation should be over with sometime by noon on Saturday, the way it looks right now. So we'll be watching as the storm system comes out of the Rockies into the state of Nebraska. Right now, Nebraska is in pretty good shape. Omaha, you've had a pretty decent day, and there's high pressure in this vicinity right now. But again, clouds will be thickening tonight. And tomorrow night, and early Saturday will be a completely different weather story. 31 Grand Island, 28 in Des Moines, 34 Chicago and Grand Rapids. Still windy across Ohio. Temperatures dropping a bit. 44 Cleveland now, mid-40s at Columbus and Toledo too. Denver checked in at 42. 35 Salt Lake. Light snow continues. Southward, heavier snows are just blasting areas of southern Utah, southwest Colorado, northwest New Mexico, and northern Arizona, as well as some pretty good rains now in southern Nevada, and the elevations below 4,000 feet in the state of Arizona. This is a pretty wet, strong system, and as we look at the surface map, we can see that. As we look at radar here, we can tell that it's a moisture-laden, low-pressure area. Many mountain locations here in the southwest will pick up 12 to 24 inches of new snowfall in the next 24 hours. So watch your traveling. Flagstaff, Arizona, Gallup, New Mexico, Grand Junction and Cortez, Colorado, and then late tonight, Denver. You'll see some light to moderate snow developing. Let's get a more detailed look at the snow for Denver and the rest of the West. Here's Will with the forecast.
Okay, Rick, we'll check on your forecast beginning with the current weather map. We'll show you our developing snowstorm over the west. Looks like some more rain likely for tonight and tomorrow over much of Alabama and the central and northern Georgia into the western Carolinas too. At least New England by early morning tomorrow, winds should be subsiding. The chance of any precip for you folks is going to be gone. But again, the wet weather and the foggy weather remains over the southeast. But that's going to be our next storm. Could cause a lot of problems for parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan too, because we're going to look at a ton of rainfall returning to this part of the nation by the weekend, and especially on Saturday and Saturday night. And with the rivers already on the rise in these areas, we're going to be looking at some more troublesome spots developing here with some more flooding over the upcoming weekend. Take a look at the precip in the west, mostly snow developing there. This is mostly rain, and that's going to stick around here right through tomorrow over much of central and the southwestern Alabama, into northeastern Georgia too. And take a look at the snow in the west. Some that could be piling up to another foot or better through the midnight hour, and then shortly thereafter we'll be watching for more of that that developing as well. Lows tomorrow morning, single numbers, teens and 20s across the west. Look at the southeast again, 60s and 70s here. It is going to be another warm day in Florida. Again, Orlando today hit 90 degrees, could be close to that again tomorrow. And you can see for Saturday and Sunday, troughiness develops over the west. Strong southwesterly flow over the southeastern part of the country keeps it warm there right through Monday afternoon. And then we're going to take a look at what's going to be happening after this. Watch what happens by Saturday afternoon. Problems could be arising now as you look at Saturday afternoon. Again, our storm system would begin to bog down somewhat. It's going to pick up a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Thunderstorms, some of those could become locally severe from Jackson, Mississippi over towards Mobile, Alabama, and then developing north of there. But look at the steadier rain coming down. This will be light to moderate rainfall, which means the Rock River in Illinois, the Wabash River in Indiana, could be looking at some more serious flooding problems developing there. The rivers are going to be rising for the next day or two, and with this rain coming on board, it's only going to cause even more serious problems there, perhaps by late Saturday into Sunday. We'll take our first storm, shove it off the eastern seaboard by Sunday night. The next one drops in by Monday. And once again, for the Mid-South, developing as far north as Indianapolis, Columbus, Detroit, and Chicago. More rain in the forecast, and we'll be watching to see if that will cause any more flooding problems by then.
I wanted to take you first out to the west. We'll show you some of the snow here on the Four Corners region and showery weather all the way back down toward LA and San Diego. Again, the higher elevations, some of which will receive some significant snows here in the Wasatch Mountains into the San Juans of Colorado, the Rockies of Colorado, 6 to 12 there, and areas in white, of course, indicating where over a foot might be expected. And again, any of those resorts here into Arizona and New Mexico should be faring pretty well with some additional snowfall. And with our system out to the west, temperatures have generally been a little bit below the average, but the stronger southerly winds coming up ahead of our system in the east have provided you with some wonderful warmth, anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees in some cases above the average, and some record high temperatures to boot. There's a look at your weather as we head on into the east, and you'll find some showery weather in the southeast, as I mentioned, so much so that we've had some significant rains here to speak of. 2.11 inches in Montgomery, Alabama. Lake Charles picking up over 2 inches. And Knoxville in Atlanta also seeing significant rain. Detroit and Cleveland, that's rain associated with a different system, the one that also brought a lot of wind into Toledo, Ohio. So that's part of our eastern weather. The other eastern weather story, of course, would be the record warmth. 89 in Fort Myers, Columbia, South Carolina up to 84, Richmond 79. Philly up to 74, and an all-time record high for JFK Airport. Never before on this day in February have you seen, or even for February, have you seen a temperature that warm, 71 degrees. So some very nice warmth there in the northeast. We do caution you not to get too used to it, though, as things are going to be cooling down behind this front. There is no doubt about that. Let's go in a little bit closer with the rain in the southeast. I skipped over a radar, but let's go to it now and show you that the extent of the rain is actually going from, say, around North Carolina back down into southwestern Louisiana. And you can see southern suburbs of Atlanta might be kind of on the southern extent, at least for now, with the lighter green indicating lighter rains there. Darker greens indicating some heavier rain, and some of that now pushing into northeastern Georgia. More significant moisture also into Birmingham, Alabama, and then stretching all the way back out toward Jackson, Mississippi. As we head back to the maps, a little bit of snow in other parts of the east, and emphasis on the word light, not expecting to see a lot of snowfall there. Back to your good evening forecast now, and we'll take you region by region. Told you it was going to be a little bit cooler here into New York and on into Boston, as opposed to highs up around 70 degrees, only looking at some low 50s for you in the Big Apple. 39 around Boston. Washington, D.C., nation's capital, warming to around 55 with some rain maybe working on in for the afternoon. 62 for your morning low in Atlanta, up to 67 for the afternoon. So very mild. One of those nights you can leave the windows open, assuming it doesn't rain too hard. You'll find even more warmth down into South Florida, Miami, up to 84, and another warm one, no doubt, for Fort Myers as well. Into Chicago we go, 26 degrees in the morning, warming to around 46 for the afternoon. All that messy weather out in the west, out in the Rockies, will start to spread on northward and eastward. Minneapolis, you may be looking at a mix of some rain and snow, temperatures around 35. And finally into the west we go. looking a little bit better for you into LA and San Diego, highs in the 60s. At least the moisture moves on out. But again, all that is moving on eastward. So more snow into the higher elevations, rain in the valleys, and wind working on toward the Red River Valley for Friday. Travelers forecast next.
Rain and fog make driving treacherous, even deadly in parts of the east. Rivers are on the rise across the mid-Mississippi Valley, and some parts of the country haven't given up on winter just yet. Those stories plus in-depth forecast and analysis in this edition of WeatherScope.
Would you believe it was warmer today in Pittsburgh than it was in Phoenix, Arizona?
No way.
It was. It's the truth. Good evening. I'm Dave Schwartz.
And I'm Gene Rubin, and Dave always tells the truth. We also have a new storm system building in the west, speaking of the west.
That's right.
But first, the wind-blown streets of Toledo, Ohio. Your day in Toledo, Ohio was spent battling the wind. There were sustained winds of 35 miles an hour with gusts to 60. Try moving boxes in that kind of wind, or moving anything, I guess. Friday should not be as windy in the Toledo area. The low pressure that brought the wind being replaced by high pressure. In New York City, fog and wet roads are being blamed for a fatal accident involving a school minibus early today. The bus slid, flipped over the center divide, and landed on top of a car. One person is dead and several others were injured. Visibility had dropped to about a quarter of a mile. Speaking of low visibility and fog, it was a similar story in North Georgia this morning, where fog is blamed for a 27-vehicle pileup on I-85. It happened in Jackson County, northeast of Atlanta. There was several reports of injuries, but no reports of fatalities. So fog causing problems in New York, all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia. Some heavy rains have fallen in the Atlanta area. If we could look at those rainfall amounts, there we go. Atlanta, Georgia, 1.01 inches as of yesterday evening. It's been raining quite heavily in the last few hours. We might have to up that total pretty soon. Montgomery, Alabama, topping the list, just over 2 inches of rain. So we've had a lot of rain in the southeast due to a stall front. We'll show you that in a moment. Also in the east and southeast, lots of record-breaking high temperatures today. As far south as Fort Myers at 89. Moving up to Washington, 77. Baltimore, 76. Philly, 74. Look at that towards the bottom of the list. JFK Airport in New York, 71. You've never been that warm in the month of February. Buffalo, New York coming in at 63 degrees for a record high today. And your winds in Buffalo were higher than your record high temperature. The winds were gusting to over 70, near hurricane force winds. Nearby Niagara Falls, you had a wind gust to 81 miles an hour. Did some damage in the town, needless to say. Tree damage, I believe it even took a roof off of a high school. So some very strong winds associated with a deep low pressure area. Out ahead of that low, Lots of warm air being drawn northward. Look at these temperatures, 25, 30, 35 degrees warmer than they should be this time of year. And you saw those records along the East Coast to reinforce this graphic here. Current temperatures, guess what? New York, you're still 70. Still 69, the nation's capital, Raleigh-Durham 67, Charleston 67. The front has not moved into your area yet, but look back at Pittsburgh. Look back at Buffalo, Burlington in the 30s and 40s. You can see where the front is right through here. That's where the cold front is. It's going to move off the East Coast, but it's not going to move off the Southeast Coast. Matter of fact, it's going to turn around and move back north as a warm front over the next couple of days. Low pressure, a double-headed low, very strong, deep low with strong winds wrapping around it right now. Still high wind warnings. These should be taken down the next few hours. Winds are diminishing now 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, unlike the very strong winds up to 80 miles an hour earlier. However, along the coast from Delaware Bay to Chatham, gale warning in effect. Winds could still gust overnight tonight up to about 55 miles per hour. Into the southeast, here's that stall front I told you about with heavy rains to the north especially. Heavy rain around Atlanta, thunder and moderate rain in Marietta. Rains back to Birmingham and Jackson. The rain's not going to move anywhere the next couple of days until this front finally moves to the north. As we look at the potential for strong thunderstorms right here in Georgia, Alabama, a little part of the Florida Panhandle. As we look at a radar from that region, you can see the rains here settling in. Now, look to the south of Atlanta. It looks like it was starting to end, but here comes some more bands of rain. We'll have to keep an eye on that. There could be some localized flooding. Central part of the country, nice and dry, but look at this, a double-headed monster here in the west, and that could spell some trouble with heavy snows. And Dave will have details on that as that storm moves into the Four Corners area. Dave?
That's right, Gene. The weekend weather in many areas will be affected by that storm in the west. Snow is falling today in Utah. Spring officially is 3 weeks and 5 hours away, but the snowplows are still cranked up in the mountains of the west. These pictures were taken in Provo Canyon near Salt Lake City. Plenty of snow still coming down, and no doubt keeping the ski resorts going strong. Look at all the snow we're expecting here in virtually every mountain range in the west, including Mount Charleston right there. That's what that dot is. That is west of Las Vegas. You can see the snow on a clear day on Mount Charleston up at 11,000 feet. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, it was no bargain today. What with all these clouds around, there have been a few rain showers here too. Look at this storm just diving southward through California, making the turn through Arizona. A lot of snow out here, heavy snow in the southern San Juan Mountains here in Colorado, amongst other places. We've got a cool rain falling today in Phoenix. Currently raining. It's 52 degrees in Phoenix right now. Relative humidity at 100%. In Phoenix, Arizona, we've had about 1/3 of an inch of rain, and that's enough to get some of the intersections around town flooded. So watch it here. We're going to stay kind of stormy, see more energy diving down toward the San Gabriels. Snow is falling here above Los Angeles, and there are a few rain showers now just to the south of Las Vegas. A very stormy and cool pattern here in the west. These storms are coming in from the northwest over a big ridge of high pressure that was earlier this week inland. It's continuing to retrograde, and the storms going up and over the top are now affecting us here, even all the way down into San Diego, where we've got some light rain. And the storm that's put down heavy snow in the mountains of Hawaii is finally beginning to weaken. Some of this moisture will be drawn up and into this storm, which will head for California Saturday and Sunday, then across the country. Let's get to that forecast. Here's Gene.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Friday morning's weather map shows that double-headed monster becoming a single-headed one in the Four Corners area, spreading heavy snows along this trough of low pressure all the way up to Bismarck and maybe Fargo and North Dakota. High pressure replacing that low pressure and the windy conditions in the northeast. Winds will calm down quite a bit by morning. The front stalling out in the southeast. Still some heavy rains on your way to work and school. Atlanta, Nashville, Huntsville, Jackson, over to around Dothan, Alabama. Even some showers and thunder showers there. By late in the day tomorrow, here comes that low pressure area moving into the Texas Panhandle. Could be some heavy snows developing with this trough of low pressure in the Dakotas and Minnesota. Could be some heavy thunderstorms, excuse me, in the southeast back over to Little Rock, Arkansas. We're going to watch for the potential here of strong to severe thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. Between now and noon tomorrow, heaviest rains around Atlanta, Georgia. Maybe another 1 or 2 inches could fall there. Heaviest snows. Dave showed you all that heavy snow in the western part of the nation. Cool temperatures, hard to find really. You got to go way up to Holton, Maine and Way up here to Cutbank, Montana, lots of warm numbers here for lows. Lows in the 50s in the nation's capital. Ooh, that is warm. Look at all the warm temperatures in the southeast. That's Friday. What about the first weekend in March, Dave?
Well, the first weekend in March starts off Saturday with Friday also. Frying pan hot here in Nashville, New Orleans, Houston in the 70s, Atlanta 70 degrees, Charleston in the 70s, Orlando in the 80s, a ridge of high pressure. That'll be knocked down just a tad. Some of this cooler air for Chicago will move east, but this is cooler. This is not cold. We're going to develop a west to east flow, a zonal flow across the country, and you can see it, of storms at least. Eventually, you can see it by the striated nature of our high temperatures here. No big dips, no big soaring heat either, but I'll tell you, we'll take 65 in Washington, D.C. on Monday, any day of the week. Well, here comes our next storm, the one from Arizona around the bottom, plus some northern energy moving across. Bang, Chicago to New Orleans, rain, thunderstorms. That heads east on Sunday. So we dry out for a little while in Boston and New York, and then we're back into the rain. Then here comes the next storm from California. Part of it hangs in, part of it sends its way into the plains. We got some active weather here, Gino.
You're going to show some radars, I bet, in Atlanta and maybe in Colorado coming up.